When I was little, I sold myself into servitude to save my family. 10 years later, at the birthday banquet of the Qiao household, I recognized my father. He had risen to the rank of prefect. The old madam showed mercy and allowed the young master to escort me home personally. But my two younger sisters, one went on a hunger strike, the other tried to hang herself, unwilling to accept a former servant as their elder sister. My father was heartbroken. He sent me back to our hometown under the pretense of reuniting, but in truth, he used my servant status to give me away as a concubine. The clothes and silver I brought from the Qiao residence were all split between the two sisters. Within half a month of marriage, the wife found an excuse to beat me to death. When I woke again, I had returned to that winter. In the dilapidated temple, my disgraced father and two little sisters were starving to death. Once again, I sought out Madame Xia the matchmaker, pointed to the two girls, and cried out, "Please, help them find a way to live." It was the third year of drought in Chenlu. Even tree bark and weeds had been stripped by the starving. Mother was the first to die from hunger. Once graceful and beautiful, she had pawned all her jewelry, only rags covered her thin frame. My father, still wearing his scholar's robe, sat dazed in the corner, clutching his brush, mumbling to no one. My sisters, Yuan Yun, age 5, and Yuan Yu, age 4, were licking ash from the ground. I ran barefoot out of the ruined temple, knelt all day in front of a straw mat vendor. The owner sighed and secretly tossed me half a torn mat. I wrapped mother in that mat, tied it with grass rope, and under the moonlight, dragged her through the night to a wild graveyard outside the eastern city. Mother was light. Even a 7-year-old could pull her. Afraid wild dogs would eat her, I knelt and dug the earth with a broken tile piece, day and night, until the hole was deep enough. I buried her, then shaped a rice bowl from clay, placed it in front of her grave, and kowtowed 3 times before dragging myself back. Madame Xia was already waiting at the temple gate. In famine years, the rich sold cattle, the poor sold children, her business was booming. Seeing me, she beamed, "Miss Chen, have you decided?" I nodded slowly. Hearing I planned to sell myself, my father's eyes bulged. He staggered to his feet, shoved Madame Xia aside, and yelled, "Leave. The Qin family would rather starve than sell our daughter." I knelt. "Father, think of it as giving me a chance to live. I haven't had a full meal in so long." My father looked up and sighed. Heaven, I, Chen, studied in vain, only to fall to this. Seeing he was wavering, Madame Xia quickly pulled out the agreed silver, 8 taels. I had researched the price. If I was to sell myself, I'd make it worth it. Father accepted the silver, muttering, "A girl, worth that much." He glanced at my sisters still licking ash in the corner. Madame Xia followed his gaze and said, "Ordinary girls aren't worth this much. Lord Chen, if you've decided, I'll take her now." Father clutched the silver like half asleep. On the road back into the city, I'd found a malt candy someone dropped. Before leaving, I broke it in half, gave 1 piece each to my sisters. I told Father, "You've sold me. Please don't sell them too. If you do, there'll be nothing left of this family." Mother's soul would be in pain. Father still looked dazed. I followed Madame Xia. A dozen steps away, I looked back. Father was leaning against the temple door, wiping away tears with his sleeve. 10 years later, I had become Bai He, the most favored maid beside the old madam of the Qiao family in the capital. For her 80th birthday, scholars and officials flocked to offer congratulations. Among them was Wen Qin, newly appointed prefect of Jinling. People in the Qiao household had secretly laughed at him for a while. He was nearly the same age as Third Master Qiao, yet claimed to be his godson. The old madam sat alone on the warm couch. Third Master brought him forward to offer birthday wishes. He knelt, bowed 3 times, and said loudly, "Your grandson wishes the old ancestor longevity, health, and happiness." The old madam was pleased and gifted him a jade scepter, asking me to deliver it. As he bowed, murmuring thanks, he quickly looked up and stole a glance at me. Our eyes met, and my heart trembled. 10 years apart, my father, the man who once starved in rags, had become the dignified prefect Chen. He seemed to recognize me too. As he left, he secretly turned back for one more glance, a faint smile tugging at his lips. At dusk, I laid out the old madam's bedding and placed the warming pouch by her pillow. Sitting beside her bed, I fell into deep thought. Qing Lian came over and nudged me gently. Elder sister, good news. I overheard Third Master and the old madam discussing. They want to marry you to his most prized student. Carried in an 8-man bridal sedan. As the principal wife. After the wedding, you'll follow him to Jinling when he takes up his post. I thought she had not fully woken from her nap and laughed. You're being foolish. When have you ever heard of a maid becoming a principal wife? And the wife of an official no less. I'd be laughed to death by his colleagues. Qing Lian rolled her eyes and smiled. Don't belittle yourself. Maids of a great household are far better than poor girls outside. We've grown up living among the ladies and young mistresses, never stepping foot on the noisy streets. After you marry and go to Jinling, your manners alone will carry the bearing of a noblewoman. Who would dare assume the wife of the Chen family once worked as a maid? Her words struck me like a blow to the head. Jinling. Wife of the Chen household. Before I could ask more, the old madam summoned me. She spoke softly. Bai He, come sit. I carried over a small stool and sat at her side. Bai He, she asked, how many years has it been since you came to me? 8 years. That's right. The old madam narrowed her eyes slightly. I still remember the first time I saw you, in the corner of the garden. A tiny child writing characters on the ground with a piece of green bamboo. In the blink of an eye, 8 years have passed. When I first entered the Qiao household, I was assigned to serve concubine Su. She had been Third Master's woman long before, gentle in appearance but sharp-tongued. And she didn't even show proper respect to the official wife. Because Third Master praised me for being pretty, she said a 7-year-old like me was a little fox spirit. She beat and scolded me morning and night, pinched me black and blue. And still feeling uneasy, refused to keep me by her side. Better to lack a servant, she said, than let me serve her. So she sent me to the kitchens to work as a furnace maid. Madame Tan, who managed the kitchen and gambled with her, would beat me with the back of a cleaver whenever she lost money. I struggled in the kitchens for a year. Once, Madame Tan's husband came to deliver rice and firewood. He pinched my cheek and chuckled. Little one. He didn't finish before leaving. Once he was gone, Madame Tan rushed to concubine Su to whisper. Keeping me would bring misfortune. Better to find a broker and sell me to a lowest rank brothel. Claim I had died. And earn more than 10 taels of silver. Concubine Su was tempted immediately, her monthly allowance was only 2 taels. A tiny maid, Li Ji, ran to warn me. She told me the lowest rank brothel was the filthiest place imaginable. Girls locked in dark rooms without clothes. Violated day and night. Rarely surviving 3 months. Li Ji trembled as she spoke, clutching her chest, saying, to die like that, even in the next life, one could never return as a decent human, only a beast. In my panic, I remembered the old well in the corner of the garden. I ran there. Before jumping, I knelt and wrote the name of my hometown, Chenlu, on the ground. Hoping that when they found my pitiful body, they would send my remains home during their visits. But fate had other plans. I encountered the old madam. She saw the characters scratched into the soil and sighed. This child must have been born to a proper family. She immediately brought me back to her side as a second-class maid. Within 2 years, when Shuju got married, the old madam promoted me to first-class maid. And entrusted me with managing the important chests and ledgers. Snapped back from my memories. I saw tears glistening in the old madam's eyes. and froze. The old madam's hands trembled. By he. I can't keep you with me any longer. I was shocked and quickly said. Old madam, I don't want to leave. Please don't send me away. By he, listen to me. She sighed softly. You must know this, third master has been begging me for you for 3 years. Thick-skinned man, begged 3 times. I even gave him 300 taels, told him to go buy a maid elsewhere and stop buying the people at my side. But child, I can protect you for a while. Not for a lifetime. When autumn comes, I can already feel my body weakening. Once I'm gone, where could you run? If you fall into his hands then, only then will you know true suffering. I burst into tears, clutching her legs. Then I will smash my head before your coffin and go cleanly with you. She stroked my hair and scolded softly. Don't be foolish. Living is not easy for anyone. Then she continued. But things have changed. It was he who suggested marrying you into the Qin household as the principal wife. I've investigated, it is true. Yes, it is a second marriage for him. But being the wife of an official is worlds apart from being a maid. Chen is in his prime, and he has no son. If you bear him a son, you will secure your position. I know why third master agreed. He's eyeing those chests of mine. If I marry off the smartest maid at my side and grow senile, he can make his move more easily. But this is a heaven-sent opportunity. It doesn't waste the years you faithfully served me. Hearing this, a wave of bitterness overwhelmed me. So my father had not recognized me at all. He only saw a favored maid. But the old madam, she had treated me sincerely from the beginning. I no longer hid it. Gritting my teeth, I whispered. Old madam, he is my real father. She froze. But she was, after all, the old madam. With only a few questions, she believed me. She sighed. No wonder, such a young child writing beautifully like that. By he, I will send you home. A life like yours was never meant to be spent as a maid. That night, as always, I kept the night watch by her side. Behind the drawn bed curtains, she spoke in a low voice. By he, this cannot be delayed. I will send you back to your father at once. After you're gone, I will say that you contracted consumption. That you might spread illness. And that you were taken to the estate and cremated that very night. Once home, take back your original name. Return to being the prefect's daughter as before. As for the Qiao household, deny it with your life. Never admit it. Later, if you marry and gain status, you'll inevitably encounter people who know something. Just act as though you don't know them. If anyone mentions the Qiao family, good or bad, do not frown. Do not react. Not even a flicker. Child, the divide between high and low is higher than the heavens. Never forget my words. She continued. This must be done cleanly. I will leave everything to little Shu. The boy will deliver you safely to your father. Once you're back, reunited with your father and sisters, forget the past. Treat it as nothing more than a dream. She repeated her instructions more than 10 times. I let the tears fall silently, afraid she would feel sorrow for me, and wiped them away quietly. But one small sob escaped, and she heard it. She patted my hair, sighing. What a foolish child. Being a proper young lady is such a blessing. Inside a trunk in the corner, she had packed 2 full chests for me. Some items were even from her own bridal dowry long ago. When dawn's first light crept across the sky, it was time to part. I knelt and kowtowed to the old madam. She turned away, waving her hand. Go quickly. Qing Lian helped place the hood over my head, eyes red. Elder sister, take care. The old madam still has me here. While the city was still dark, Xiao Shu personally mounted his horse. and escorted a small sedan chair out of the Qiao household, heading straight to the back gate of the Chen residence. Seeing me again, my father's expression was nothing like the faint joy he showed that day in the Qiao household. He cleared his throat awkwardly and said, "Stay in the back courtyard for now. I'm busy these days, don't come greet me." Then he turned to a woman with a sallow face. "Madam Chu, take her down." For half a month, I lived in the back courtyard. Madam Chu brought meals on time but never allowed me to step outside. She spoke sweetly enough, always repeating. The master instructed that the young lady's whereabouts must remain secret for now. Suspicion grew inside me day by day, but I remembered the old madam's words. Be calm, be patient. One day, two sharp voices drifted in from outside the window. One said, "That old man brought home another woman. Let's go look." The other scoffed. "They say she's just a maid. What's there to hide? Why keep her locked away?" At once, I remembered the two sisters who once licked ash from the ground to survive. Ignoring how strange their words were, I pushed open the window and called out. "Yun, you." Under the autumn sunlight, one girl in green and one in yellow goose silk turned toward me. They were no longer the thin, starving children of that winter. Round-faced now, pretty as two young bamboo shoots. Good. In that instant, I thought of Mother. If she could see them from the underworld, she would surely be comforted. But before I could speak another word, the girl in green snapped. "Damn you, what are you? How dare you call me sister?" The girl in yellow immediately added. "She needs to be taught a lesson. Madam Chu, slap her mouth." Madam Chu did not move. The two grew furious. Just then, Father appeared. He rubbed his forehead in exhaustion, dismissed Madam Chu, and called the two girls into the room. Pointing at me, he said, "Yun, you, this is your elder sister, your real sister. Her name is Yunhee." They stared, stunned. Yun was the first to speak. "Father, what kind of joke is this? You bring home a maid and want to steal my place as the eldest." You cast her a sidelong look, then smiled sweetly. "I don't mind. If Father wants me to acknowledge her, then I will." She even made a show of stepping forward to bow. Yun hurriedly pulled her back. "Are you stupid? If people find out we have an elder sister who was a maid, what will happen to our marriage prospects? Father is counting on us to bring him honor." When she finished, she looked desperately at Father. Father stroked his beard, face stern. "She is your real sister. If not for her selling herself, how would the three of us have survived the famine? How would I have lived long enough to pass the examinations? One cannot be ungrateful. Bow to your sister." You spoke up quickly. Father, then give the silver back to her and send her away. Isn't that fine? No. Father's temper flared. Yun pressed her lips together, eyes reddening but tears refusing to fall. She stomped her foot and ran out. Moments later, a maid shrieked. "Bad news. Master. The eldest young lady took a length of white silk, she's trying to hang herself." At that, my father immediately turned and rushed away. You shot me a glare and left as well. Late the next night, Father came again. Rubbing his temples non-stop, he sighed helplessly. "Your two younger sisters keep threatening to die. You still refuses to eat or drink. If no one watches Yun, she'll hang herself again. You cannot stay in this house any longer." Father continued. "I don't want you to suffer grievances either. I've arranged for you to return to our old hometown in Chenlu. I already bought a large house there. As the eldest daughter, you can go first and manage things for me. After some time, once your sisters calm down, I'll send them there as well." By then, my disappointment had sunk too deep to feel anything more. Still, the thought of returning home to be with Mother's grave wasn't unbearable, so I asked, "Where is Mother buried?" I'm willing to stay there and keep her company. Father, just take the two sisters to Jinling. He brushed off the question. Isn't she in the Chen ancestral cemetery? You'll see when you get there. It's not convenient to describe it now. A knot of anxiety tightened in my chest. Could it be? Mother was still buried in that wild grave outside the city. If so, I had to return quickly. Autumn rains were heavy this year. If her grave was washed away, I would never find her again. Father chatted idly for a few more moments, then left. 2 days later, a small green sedan chair carried me out of the Qin household. Madame Chu said. The sedan will stop at the docks. From there, you'll switch to a boat heading home. The young lady's luggage was brought aboard early this morning. Inside the sedan, I gripped the jade pendant the old madam had gifted me. In just half a month, it felt as though the peaceful days at the Qiao residence now belonged to a previous life. The sedan suddenly stopped. But it wasn't the docks. It was the back gate of some unknown manor. A loud voice called out. The new concubine sent by Prefect Chen has arrived. Why hasn't she come out of the sedan yet? Terror surged through me. I lifted the curtain and ran. I didn't know where I was going. Only that I had to run back to the old madam. But father came with servants, blocking the alley. I screamed at him. Why? Prefect Chen flicked his sleeve and said coldly. A servant for a day, lowborn for a lifetime. This is your fate. Don't expect the Qiao family to protect you. Their mansion was raided days ago. I personally led the confiscation. His men beat me unconscious, tied me up, and delivered me. As a servant. To be a concubine. The clothes, silver, the 2 full chests from the Qiao household. None of it was brought with me. My sisters had surely divided everything. Because I arrived with nothing. Because I had been a servant. Everyone stepped on me. Before half a month passed, the main wife found an excuse to beat me to death. She stripped me of the fine garments, wrapped me in a torn mat, and threw me into a wild graveyard. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to that winter. In the ruined temple, father and my 2 sisters were starving to death. Again, I sought out Madame Xie. Pointing at the 2 children, I cried. Please help them find a way to live. Madame Xie frowned. These 2 are too young. I thought you wanted to sell yourself. I knelt. Father is waiting for me to serve him. How could I seek an escape just for myself? Take whatever price you want. Just treat it as doing a good deed. Madame Xie sighed. Fine. Take 2 tails. A girl of 5 and another of 4. I'll have to raise them for 2 more years before they can be sold. It's a losing business in times like these. Remember this favor. The fortune teller yesterday said you have the face of a benefactor. If you succeed one day, remember old Madame Xie. She called a porter. 2 baskets, front and back. Carried Yun and you away. I used 1 tael to give mother a proper burial. After settling mother's grave, I bought rice and made a small fire. Father, lying in the corner, murmured. It smells so good, so good. He slowly woke. Clutching the clay bowl, he sipped the thin porridge while tears streamed down. Yun, you. I am truly a wretched man. I ignored him. With malt candy in my mouth, I drank porridge in small sips. In my past life, though he didn't sell Yun and you to Madame Xie, he also didn't raise them properly. It was only another form of selling. Old Madame Wu once let slip that whenever 3rd master visited the Qin household to drink, if father was not home, it was always Yun who entertained the guests. Paper cannot hide fire. The Qin household had long turned into a disguised brothel. Yet Yun still dreamed of a respectable marriage. As in my previous life. The famine eased after a month. Corrupt officials were executed. Relief grain was distributed. And spring brought good weather. The first harvest of barley sprouted strong. When hunger was no longer a threat. Father occasionally complained. "Why did you sell your sisters?" I gave a cold laugh and pointed to the scholar's robe on his body. "Mother died without a coffin. You refused to sell this robe. If you wouldn't sell the robe or the girls, what else was there left to sell?" His face burned with shame. "I'm a scholar. How can I dress like merchants or laborers?" I said nothing. From then on, he dared not mention it again. Instead, I mentioned Yun and you every day. I pushed him to study harder. To pass the exams quickly. To search for them. Late at night, when he nodded off over his books, I shoved him awake. Father, your essay isn't finished yet. Don't sleep." Bleary-eyed, he snapped. "Are you trying to kill me?" I knelt immediately. What a wrong daughter I am. Yun and you are wandering who knows where. If you take too long to succeed, they might already be dragged into brothels. The Chen ancestors won't forgive you. Father let out a long sigh. Picked up his brush with trembling fingers. A human life is like a candle. If burning faster can light the road for me to enter the capital sooner, then let it burn. As expected, in this life, my father passed the provincial exam 3 years earlier than before. Using the connection of being from the same hometown, he befriended the Qiao family. He visited the Qiao household as a guest, bringing one of my embroidery pieces as a gift for the old madam. She adored it. She said the precision of the needlework reflected the character of the Chen family's young lady. Just like how a person's nature is revealed through their handwriting. When she heard I had no mother, she sighed deeply and said, "Have the Qin young lady come stay here for a few days. I'd like to keep her company." At first glance, she took a liking to me. She brought out embroidery from her youth to show me. Enthusiastically played chess with me. And even ate an extra half bowl of red rice porridge for dinner. That night, she arranged for me to stay in the warm room near hers. She held my hand and gently said, "Treat this place as your own home. If you need anything, tell Qing Lian." By he, don't be shy. By he, in this life, was born in the residence. With an oval face and gentle temperament, she was lovely and kind. Qing Lian was just as I remembered, bright, spirited, and beautiful. The next morning, she helped me dress. She hesitated several times, then finally said, "My lady, forgive me, but I feel as though I've seen you somewhere before. You seem very familiar." One of the older maids nearby overheard and added, "Concubine Yun's face does resemble the young lady's a little." Bai he quickly shooed her away, muttering, "Mama Shen really doesn't know when to hold her tongue." Once Bai he left, I quietly asked Qing Lian, "Who is concubine Yun?" A few years ago, Steward Lin went home to visit family. He brought back 2 girls he said were sisters. This spring, third master took the elder one as a concubine. Held a banquet to announce it, everyone now calls her concubine Yun. Concubine Su was furious. Once, while master was away, she struck concubine Yun several times, accusing her of seducing the master. Third master was enraged. He locked concubine Su in the storehouse. She was bitten by rats and developed a high fever. She didn't last long. I felt a chill run through me. What a coincidence. 2 sisters brought from the countryside. And the elder one had Yun in her name. In my past life, the Qiao family steward had returned to the village during a famine to buy maids. That was how I entered the residence. But in this life, perhaps by fate, Yun and you had arrived too. After lunch, as usual, the old madam took a short nap. Qing Lian smiled and whispered, "My lady, let me accompany you for a stroll in the back garden." We walked past a beautiful rockery and suddenly heard someone being scolded. It was a woman dressed like a concubine, berating a maid kneeling on the ground. Hearing our steps, the woman turned to look. It was unmistakably Yun. I took a few steps closer to get a better look. Her face no longer had the glow it once had. And her makeup was heavy and clumsy. A bright red skirt paired with a green silk top. Just the kind of gaudy look favored by concubines in favor. Despite our presence, her brows were tightly furrowed. She pinched the maid's arm hard and snapped. Still so insolent. Drag her out and marry her off to some peasant. Who gave her permission to appear in front of the master? Qing Lian frowned and stepped forward. Concubine Yun, Miss Chen is visiting. The old madam asked me to take her through the garden. You can scold you later, but please, let her stand up first. Yun shot us a glance. Then turned back and pinched the maid again, causing her to gasp in pain. She muttered. A miss. Probably just some poor girl here to freeload. And she dares call herself a young lady. Humph. Qing Lin, slap her mouth. A stern voice rang out from behind. It was the old madam. Qing Lian stepped forward and delivered 2 crisp slaps. Without a hint of hesitation. Yun's face swelled immediately. The old madam said coldly. If you keep acting this arrogant, the Qiao family will not keep you. Yun gritted her teeth, grabbed the maid, and retreated quietly. Only then did I notice. The trembling girl in coarse clothing was none other than you. Later, Qing Lian whispered to me. Concubine Yun is cruel. That's her real sister, yet she scolds and beats her like a stranger. They say it was actually you that third master first noticed. But Yun bribed a young page to sneak food to the study at night. That's how she replaced her. She stuck out her tongue. I shouldn't be saying such filth in front of you. I blinked and gently said. It's fine. But in my heart, I sighed. Even Reborn, Yun was still a step ahead of you in scheming. Only. Didn't she learn anything from concubine Su? How long did she really think her favor would last? Third Master Qiao never had lasting interest in women. His enthusiasm usually faded within days. Meanwhile, staying beside the old madam, I enjoyed a period of peace and comfort. Just like long, long ago, when mother was still alive. Though I was reluctant, I still bid farewell to the old madam, intending to return home to investigate and find a way to help the Qiao family. But after discreet inquiries, it became clear. The Qiao household was beyond saving. Their fall was inevitable, far beyond my strength to reverse. The old madam had 3 sons. The eldest and second sons were upright gentlemen. But both had died young. Only the eldest had left a son behind, Qiao Shu. The Qiao family descended from meritorious officials and had long enjoyed imperial favor. The emperor, unwilling to watch them decline, allowed third master to inherit the title. But though born of the same mother, the brothers were like night and day. Third Master Qiao was a debauched hedonist, utterly lecherous. Any maid with even a hint of beauty would be dragged into his bed. While serving as an official in the provinces, he indulged endlessly in wine and women, embezzling funds without hesitation. He caused such a massive deficit that he had to sell land and shops just to cover it. Upon returning to the capital, he spent his days idling with unsavory friends, acting as a broker and accepting unjust cases. His hands now stained with the blood of over a dozen innocent people. As the boy's own uncle, he deliberately prevented Qiao Shu from marrying. Any matchmaker the old madam found was quietly driven off by him. He feared Qiao Shu would marry, start a family, and divide the estate. Worse, he grew increasingly close to Prince Qi, a man rumored to harbor treasonous intentions. Loyalty, propriety, integrity, honor. None of it touched Third Master Qiao. Petitions accusing him had already piled up. The emperor's patience was wearing thin. My father, acting under orders from his superior, became a so-called disciple of Third Master Qiao. But in truth, he was just waiting for the right moment to witness the Qiao family's assets seized by the court. In my past life, 10 days after I left, the old madam had a dream she was dying. And because of it, she managed to avoid the downfall that destroyed the Qiao household. This time, by my calculations, she still had about a year and a half left to live. In that time, I would need to leverage my father to delay the confiscation of the estate. I went to father's study. In broad daylight, the door was tightly shut. After knocking a few times and receiving no reply, I gave a soft cough. Madame Chu opened the door. Her hair was disheveled, clothes wrinkled, cheeks flushed. She said coyly, "I brought pastries to the master." The wind was strong, so he had me close the door. "We must not have heard you arrive. Please, young lady, go in. I'll excuse myself, it's time to prepare dinner." Inside, father sat upright at his desk, pen in hand. The inkstone had dried out long ago. I walked over, added a little water, and began to grind ink. Casually, I asked, "What are you writing, father?" He cleared his throat and said with a straight face, "A truthful report on Third Master Qiao's movements. I'm nearly finished with the memorial." I tilted my head to glance at the pages. "Your ink is ready. You might as well start over. I don't think those things need to be mentioned anymore." He glared at me, bristling. "Yun He. Is that how you speak to your father? I won't listen to you, is that it? You're just a foolish girl, long hair, short sight. Lying to the emperor is a crime punishable by extermination of the entire clan." He stood and made to leave. I called out, "Father, wait." I picked up several long green hairs from the cushion and held them out. "Madame Chu's hair is quite long, isn't it?" Lai Wang went back to the village to repair the ancestral tomb. He should be back soon, right? Shall I write him a letter? Remind him to hurry home. My father's face flushed red on the spot. Ever since passing the provincial exam, many matchmakers had come knocking, offering potential wives. But he turned them all down, determined to marry a proper noble lady. To this day, he still hadn't met any noble lady blind enough to accept. So for all these years, the Qin household remained under the rule of the eldest daughter, me. Last year, he couldn't endure anymore and finally spent money to marry a concubine. She was the daughter of a poor but decent family, plain-looking, gentle, and slow-witted. My father, still fancying himself an upright gentleman, had specifically instructed the matchmaker that beauty didn't matter, lest others think poorly of him for desiring a pretty concubine. Then he looked at Lai Wang, the servant he trusted most, and gave him 12 taels of silver to marry a wife. That woman, a widow left behind by the kitchen cook, was expected to be rough and unrefined. But when Lai Wang brought her, Madame Chu, to greet him, she turned out to be a mature woman with seductive charm, enough to intoxicate any man. Without hesitation, my father took out 50 taels of silver and told Lai Wang to return to the village to tend the ancestral tombs. No sooner had Lai Wang left than the newly married concubine was cast aside and ignored. With nowhere to turn, she began trailing after me daily, sewing clothes, happily making pastries. Once, while lounging on my soft bed, she even muttered, "That old man reeks so badly, he makes me gag. It's so much more comfortable staying here with you, my lady." Now, with his weakness laid bare by me, my father's face turned crimson like a boiled crab. He grunted twice, but his feet obediently turned back. I tied the strands of long green hair in my hand into a knot and tossed them onto his desk. Because of Madame Chu, he had no choice but to abandon the chance to earn merit, and instead began painting a glowing portrait of Third Master Qiao. Once a lie is told, it must be maintained. And so he began spinning more of them. At least now, the Qiao household could survive a little longer. I often brought trinkets and food to visit the old madam. In my heart, I treated her as my own grandmother. Bit by bit, I grew closer to Bai He, Qing Lian, and the other maids. Previously, when they had others buy supplies, embroidery threads, fabrics, they were always shortchanged. So I took over the task myself. Today, as I opened the bundle I'd brought, the girls gathered around excitedly. A cheerful one named Xianxia laughed. Yunhe, why don't you open your own shop? Bai He lightly knocked her on the forehead. Are you crazy? Since when do noble daughters open shops? Why not? Xianxia pouted. Before my family fell, my grandmother owned a silk store. Many ladies only used her fabrics. Her voice trailed off. She fiddled with a silk spool in her hands and lowered her head. A dull ache welled up inside me. Maybe it was because I had been a maid in my past life. When I was among these girls, they felt no need to hide. They spoke freely about their pasts. One had been sold by her father. Another by her brother. And one had lost both parents and was sold by her uncle. Every story was laced with helpless resignation. If I was only worth a few taels of silver, how could I just watch my parents starve or freeze to death? I had once thought that way too. Men, when desperate, could sell their labor. If educated, they could teach, like my father did before he passed the exams. But women, they only had their bodies to sell. To be sold into the Qiao residence as a maid. With food to eat, clothes to wear, and not beaten every day. Many already considered themselves lucky. Qing Lian came over and pressed a box of rouge into Xianxia's hand, smiling. Here, take this. Stop pouting. You're close to earning your first oil lamp. Xianxia was still young and naive. She brightened instantly. Watching them, my thoughts drifted back to something I'd seen days ago. A raised platform at the corner of the market. Men and women stood there, heads lowered. A slave trader shouted loudly. Don't underestimate this old man just because he's got no teeth left. He's Steward Wang. Back before the estate was seized, ordinary folks like you couldn't even get close to him. Now, just one tael of silver, he's a bargain. His gray beard trembled. Behind him stood servants he'd once purchased himself. Once a household was confiscated, every servant would be auctioned by the magistrate. No matter how favored they once were. They returned to what they truly were, meat on the chopping block. The Qiao household was already on the verge of collapse. When that day came, these girls around me would also be dragged onto that stage. A shiver ran through me. In my past life, even if father hadn't sold me to my death, I still would have been sold once the Qiao estate was seized. Where would I end up? That would depend on the buyer's conscience. Someone like Madame Xia, for all her faults, was still decent. She'd try to place you in a proper household. As a maid or perhaps married to a steward. At least you'd live like a human. But the wicked ones? For a few extra coins, they'd sell girls straight into the lowest brothels without a second thought. Xianxia's words echoed in my ears. Yunhe, why don't you open your own shop? That's right, why shouldn't I run a business? My maternal grandfather once owned the largest rice shop in Chenlu. If I had enough money, then when the time came, I could buy back all these familiar girls. Just like saving the past version of myself. In a quiet alleyway where rent was cheap in the capital. My small shop opened in silence. The startup funds came from savings the steward had quietly set aside for years. Our goods were cosmetics, silk, hairpins, and embroidered scrolls resourced from others. Business went exceptionally well. Perhaps because no woman had ever opened a shop specifically for women before. And women understand women best. The concubine in our household became my right hand. She appeared slow-witted at first glance, but she was sharp and capable. Turned out, her father had been a street vendor himself. The shop quickly gained a foothold. Goods bought from Suzhou Jinling, and other places sold out almost immediately. A few young men, having heard of our reputation, would stop by and sweep entire displays clean, gifting everything to the woman in their hearts. Under the lantern light, the concubine would smile as she watched me click away on the abacus, clapping joyfully. My lady is so smart. So capable. She would trim the lamp wick, then bring out a warm bowl of sweet dessert from the clay stove. As I sipped the syrupy soup and rubbed my burning eyes, I quietly calculated the money we had saved. I prayed it would be enough. If I could save just one more person, that would be enough. Snow fell thick and fast in the heart of winter. That night, the old madam passed peacefully in her sleep. At the second knock on the wooden door, for solemn strikes sounded. Third Master Xiao clambered off the bed of his newest concubine and rushed to the old madam's room. Barely steadying himself, he immediately asked Bai He for the keys. He didn't want the servants to touch anything. He personally opened her chests, hoping to find tens of thousands of taels. But when he looked closer, 9 out of 10 chests were empty. The last held only stacks of pawn slips, worthless paper. Before everyone's eyes, Third Master Xiao coughed up a mouthful of blood. He claimed illness and gave up entirely. Luckily, the coffin had been prepared years earlier. Xiao Shu ran everywhere, borrowing and scraping together enough money to ensure the funeral was completed properly, and personally accompanied the coffin home for burial. Father returned and stomped his foot in frustration. I should have waited a bit longer. If the Qiao estate had been confiscated, I could have helped myself to a share. All that patience for nothing. Furious, he wrote a memorial that very night, exposing every monstrous crime committed by Third Master Qiao. This time, I didn't stop him. Evil meets its end. Heaven had already made its judgment. The order to confiscate the Qiao estate came swiftly. Third Master and all his concubines were thrown into prison. Xiao Shu, still on the road escorting his grandmother's coffin, caught the emperor's attention. Hearing that the young man, barely 20, had shown such filial piety, the emperor showed mercy. He spared Xiao Shu, returned the family lands in their hometown, but forbade him from holding office for life. The government auctioned off the remaining servants of the Qiao estate. I spent a large sum buying back Qing Lian and the others, settling them at a quiet manor outside the city. But there was no sign of Yun or Yu. Half a year ago, Yun finally found an excuse to marry off Yu to a man working in the large estate kitchen. That man was an old widower. His previous wife had been Madame Tan, the one who used to beat me with the back of a cleaver. She died from a ruptured gut, moaning in pain through the night until her final breath. Not long after that, Yun fell out of favor. A new concubine from Yangzhou arrived, only 16 years old. Yun had hardly saved anything. After she lost favor, her meals arrived irregularly. And sometimes, the maids only brought her spoiled leftovers. She wept bitterly, lamenting her sisterly bond with Yu. Yu, pestered endlessly, occasionally sneaked leftover food from the kitchen for her. After the Qiao estate was confiscated, the cook disappeared without a trace. Qing Lian thought for a moment, then raised her head. There's a small coal delivery door in the western wall. That day, the cook may have used it to help Yun escape. The authorities posted a wanted notice and caught the cook as he attempted to flee the city. They interrogated him about the whereabouts of the two women. He confessed he had sold Yun to a bottom-rung brothel. Originally, he planned to sell her as a concubine to a local magistrate. Yun, upon hearing that, was pleased. She laughed and said, "In a few days, I'll buy you all back to serve me." Yu's expression darkened immediately. That night, she whispered bitterly into her husband's ear. "We're all just servants who ran away together. Now you want to make her a magistrate's concubine. And you won't even lift a hand to help your sister-in-law and me. Why should she rise while we stay behind?" Just those few words, why should she? made the couple change their plans that very night. Yun happily got into the bridal sedan, walking straight into the tiger's den. Pulling up the bridge after crossing it, classic Yun. When the officials arrived at the brothel, they found Yun lying naked in a pile of filth, giggling mindlessly. She was completely ruined. One bailiff spat a curse, then went to the cook's home, where he unearthed Yu's remains. Turns out, the cook had tried to run alone. Yu refused to be abandoned. In their struggle, he drew a knife and struck. Having sold a concubine from a decent household into prostitution and then killed someone, he was sentenced to death, awaiting execution. The madam of the brothel, nicknamed the night hag's second madam, was arrested for harboring women of unknown origin. She was flogged 100 times and died on the spot. Yun also died soon after, succumbing to illness. After all, they were still mother's daughters. I paid for their burial, had their remains brought back to the Qin household, and placed in the room beside father's study. He was horrified. "This is bad luck, how can we keep this in the house?" I replied coldly. "These are the bones of Yun and Yu. Father, you may have forgotten, but I haven't. I brought our sisters home. Without them, would there even be a prefect Qin today? You wouldn't want their remains cast out into the streets for the world to see, would you?" I knew well, though the gulf between noble and lowborn was wider than the sky. My father's treatment of me in the past life had been inhuman. He could have sent me home quietly, and no one would have cared out the daughter of a provincial prefect. Yet he insisted on selling me as a concubine, because he had tasted the sweetness of selling a daughter once, and simply wanted to do it again. Even Yun and Yu, in our past lives, were sold and resold by him. All his daughters. Who was truly more fortunate? After claiming merit, my father was promoted 2 ranks in a row. He strutted around, smug and self-satisfied. Madame Chu sewed herself a new dress and even received a fur-lined cloak as a reward. The concubine came rushing to me, breathless and pale, clutching her chest. "My lady, something terrible. I overheard them plotting outside the window. They're trying to ruin you." Turned out, father was planning to marry me off to a military officer. That man had once been a local thug, then struck it rich and bought himself an official title. He already had 4 concubines at home. Father laughed. "Martial fists are tough, sure. But our eldest daughter has always been too headstrong, running the household like she owns it. Even I, her father, have to watch her mood. In a normal family, no one could control her. Wouldn't that be humiliating for me?" Madame Chu asked. "But isn't that man's status far too low? Didn't the Fu family send someone to inquire just days ago? If she marries into their house, it'd bring great honor to you." Father snorted. "If she marries into a noble house, she'll only suppress me more. And the dowry, how could I bear to spend that much? But this military officer is offering 2,000 taels in bride price. It's straightforward profit. Didn't you complain this bed is too small? Sell her off and I'll buy you a massive Wangwali wood bed." The 2 of them giggled and rolled back into bed. The concubine cursed them both. "These 2 old scoundrels, may they die ugly deaths." I gently comforted her, laughing. "Not worth your anger. Don't ruin your health over it." The next morning, father put on a stern face and declared, "I've arranged a marriage for you." I lowered my eyes and answered respectfully, "Whatever father decides." He was stunned silent. By evening, Lai Wang returned. Madame Chu froze at first, then burst into smiles, brushing dust from his shoulders and pulling him into the kitchen. Father called me into the study, eyes red and nose running. "Yunhee, your mother has been gone more than 10 years. Back then, we were a harmonious couple. Now look at me, lonely and old. If your mother knew, she'd be heartbroken." I blinked. "But haven't you already married a concubine?" He grew irritated, jabbing a finger toward his foot. Look at my shoes. Lopsided and torn. I asked her to make me a new pair 2 months ago. And all I've got is a single unfinished sole. But you. Look at the embroidery she stitched on your clothes. Tell me, did I marry that concubine for you, or for me? I almost laughed. So, father, what do you want to do? He stammered for a while before finally explaining. He wanted to marry Lai Wang off again. Send him and the concubine back to the countryside to manage the family fields. But someone needed to break the news gently. All along, I'd held influence as the eldest daughter. If I spoke to Lai Wang myself, he'd feel respected. And there was an 80% chance he'd agree. I hesitated. Then wait for me in the study tonight. I'll come to let you know what I've decided. That night, the moon was dim, the wind fierce. From within the Chen family study came a blood-curdling scream. By the time the servants arrived, old Master Chen was writhing on the floor. His abdomen sliced open, intestines spilling out in a pool of blood. No one dared approach. I came running at the sound. Glanced once, and fainted on the spot. Old Master Chen struggled and wailed. But by dawn, he was dead. All valuables in the study had vanished. Chu and Lai Wang, along with several servants, had disappeared. The authorities issued arrest warrants. A few days later, they pulled a bloated female corpse from the river. Unrecognizable from water rot. But Lai Wang was never found. I sold the estate. Took concubine Su and the remaining servants. And escorted father's coffin back home. Perhaps my sincerity moved the heavens. Through the long, bumpy journey. Not a trace of rot came from the coffin. Back in my hometown. I reopened the shop with Qing Lian and the others. And before long, we expanded into a textile workshop. The girls begged me to teach them how to read and write. So they could stop relying solely on memory to keep records. But I was always busy, balancing accounts. Dealing with noblewomen and ladies of status. I couldn't spare the time. After some thought, I wrote a notice and handed it to Song Shi, telling her to paste it at the street corner when she went out to buy food. Song Shi returned soon after, grinning ear to ear, dragging a young man behind her. She called out joyfully. The teacher's here. He's really here. Too excited, she almost tore the sleeve of the young master's robe. He gave her a helpless look, then smiled. Years ago, back at the Qiao estate. When 8-year-old Song Shi was gravely ill. The steward had ordered her carried out the back gate. Preparing to send her off to die quietly at a rural farm. It was this very young master who had returned just then with a familiar physician. And saved her life. Since then, Song Shi had regarded him like a father. Now she finally let go of his sleeve. Gazing at me with hope. As if asking me to let him stay. I smiled. In my previous life, I'd known this young master better than I did now. Back then, I often delivered things to him on behalf of the old madam. Whatever was good, she always thought of her grandson first. He always respectfully called me sister and gently asked after the old madam. Did she sleep well? Was her appetite good? When she asked him to escort me back to the Chen estate. He understood immediately. He hired more sedan carriers. Chose a quiet route. And at the door, parted with a bow. Miss, take care. He was reminding me to leave the past behind. That moment was the last warmth I ever received in my previous life. From then on, the sound of reading echoed from the courtyard daily. Rain or shine, the young master came on time to teach. On Mid-Autumn Festival, on Lunar New Year's Day. He joined us in celebration. Come spring, he took a brief leave. Everyone grew anxious. Preparing to send someone to check on him. When a matchmaker suddenly arrived. She had come to propose. On his behalf. To marry Qin Yunhe. After our wedding, he sold off his ancestral estate to help me expand the textile workshop. We hired more women. Widows cast out by their in-laws. Poor girls without means to survive. Later, we even adopted a few abandoned children found in the streets. I don't know what to call this workshop anymore. It wasn't some grand temple that could save all souls. Perhaps it was just a small, patched-up boat, tossed upon the waves, unable to rescue all. But if it could save even one more person, then it was good enough. The end.